Hello, good evening. I'm Ryan Lester, and this is episode 29 of the Wolves Report, where tonight we'll be trying to analyse the Brighton game. We're going to talk about player attitude and application, talk about the alleged issues with Bruno and the players. Is Bruno the man to take Wolves forward? Taking your questions and looking ahead to Chelsea. Now, there should be four of us, but just like last week, we've got some consistency, and it's consistency with Knockers technology. So we've got our usual pundit, Tyler. Good evening, Tyler. And we're absolutely delighted to welcome Alex Richards, the sports editor for Mirror Sport and Football. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, guys. I'll start drinking now.
Get it down, you mate. Get it down. It's probably the most positive thing that's going to happen on the show tonight. So let's get straight into it. Going back to Brighton on Saturday. Obviously, you both watched the game. Alex, just get things rolling. Then, what was your initial take on the performance?
I thought Brighton were really good. And that's about the best thing you can say about the entire thing. Brighton were really good because Wolves just didn't turn up. Can almost forgive going to Burnley against a team really struggling for relegation and they put up a fight and things don't quite work out for you and you lose. You can almost forgive going to Newcastle, a team on a real up, and losing that. It didn't create anything, but it was quite a tight game overall. But Brighton at the weekend was okay. They've had some good recent results. They went to Spurs and one went to Arsenal and won, and they are a decent outfit. But you knew again it was going to be as all Wolves games tend to be, a tight game where there'll be marginal moments, and you think you make sure that you make the most of those marginal moments, and you might get a win. I could have lost 5 or 6 if we're being truthful. Brighton just carved them apart time and time again.
It was easy, wasn't it? It was easy.
And you could almost say that you could forgive that if you saw Wolves creating plenty of chances at the other end. But I mean, effectively, they've had a number done on them by a Brighton team that had one centre-back, a left-back playing basically I wouldn't even say Cucurella was playing as a left-sided centre-back in a back three. He was
so far up, wasn't he? He was getting involved, and he had the free run of that side of the pitch. It was easy for him.
And then Veltman playing on to the right of Duncan. It was disappointing. It was disheartening, I think, for most fans. And then I think we all saw that by the number of fans that weren't there at full time, who voted with their feet and left.
You make a really interesting point, and obviously we're not here to give Brighton credit, but not a lot of people have talked about that. Everyone's talked about how bad Wolves were. So briefly, I do think we have to give Brighton some credit. Now, every time I've watched Brighton on the TV, they're very kind on the eye. They knock it round well. They look organised, there's a good shape. They just probably don't score enough goals. But typically, they scored them goals against us. So that was it's incredible. I mean, I'm in total agreement with what you say. It's incredible that we're talking about a side that have been dangled the lifeline for Europe again with all the results going their way. And that's what they turned out. And they were dominated from start to finish, tactically, technically, and desire-wise. Chris, what was I think you're going to be probably not going to be as polite as Alex, but what was your take on Saturday's game?
No, I would agree about Brighton to start with. I did put a tweet about how superb Brighton were, and I thought they were excellent, if not the best performance I've seen from an away team this season. So, credit to them. It just had nothing, did it? It was very Burnley and Newcastle-like. I think the worrying thing is, like Alex says, it's the not going or not having any intent the other way. Like, you don't mind if teams are having chances against you if it's ding-dong, gung-ho, 50-50 battle. It was so easy for Duncan. Like you said, the arrogance of them to play with one centre-back, sort of 2 wing-backs bombing on. I mean, it was so easy for them. And there were no words. You asked me about on the last podcast, were there any positives after Burnley? No. Were there any positives after Saturday? No. And it's becoming a bit of a common trend, isn't it? We're not creating chances. We're not looking like we've got a game plan. What was the game plan? I took my lad with me, my 9-year-old, and he was like, what are we trying
What's he done to deserve that, mate?
There was no fluidity, no passing, no movement. There was just nothing. Absolutely. It looked like 11 strangers had got together for a kickabout. There was absolutely nothing there at all. The back three were a disgrace. I thought Welbeck owned all 3 of them. 2 of your centre-backs were given a penalty away, both were penalties. There's just nothing. There's nothing to get you excited. The Neves one seems strange. Why is he coming in for 45 minutes? We're playing 3 midfield. we get totally outdone in midfield, and the second half we come out and play 2 in midfield. So it's just bizarre. The whole thing just asks, as I said to you, more questions than answers at the moment, unfortunately.
I mean, we didn't even make it difficult for Brighton at the start. Right from the off, they were in control of the ball. It was easy. There wasn't a real... In that kind of game, you want someone to take it by the scruff of the neck, put a tackle in, square up to somebody, get the fans going, show a bit of desire, press, be angry. But it was just one of the most insipid performances, probably since the 4-0 Burnley game last season. And it almost stinks of that kind of thing happening again. But instead of the manager having a really good few years, he's had an all right season. And Wolves just seem to be just drifting away without any interest. I mean, in terms of positives, I thought Jose Sarr was okay. I thought Hwang had a good first half, but as soon as he got the ball in the final third, he didn't know what to do with it. He was wasteful. He had one to square, and I think he could have put Fabio through once. Other than that, I thought Fabio was all right. He didn't, for me, look like the player that should have been subbed at half time. But I mean,
he's the easy substitution, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's wrong, isn't it? It happened.
That is wrong, but that's why he's the one that's getting taken off. He's the easy sub.
And you were right. I sort of questioned, I was playing devil's advocate and saying, well, lesser of two evils, both of them weren't doing great. And you were right. Take the centre half off and put the other attacking player on to keep 3 centre backs on. Madness. Again, for the whole game, it's just absolute madness.
Not just that as well, but you're chasing the game. Why do you? I mean, we almost seem now that out of fear and default that we play nothing but 3 at the back, even when we're chasing games. And there's a right way to lose a game of football, and I've been talking about this all week. If we'd have got pasted 3-0, but we'd have had a right go, and there was a bit of something about them, but just to roll over and make it easy. I mean, I'm not sure who. I think it might have been you that tweeted it, Alex. The celebration that Basuma did for the 3rd goal. He was just like
he was embarrassed. He was embarrassed.
He just rolled it home, and it was like, whatever. And like, that's embarrassing for us. It's absolutely embarrassing. I mean, for me, we'll talk about what I've tweeted about in the week and the selection, the subs, and the alleged fallout. But I don't really know where we go from here. I mean, I want to talk about the game a little bit longer, just to try and. Often we've seen when I think in the Premier League, if you're a top side and you can probably carry one or 2 players if they're having a poor game. You can't carry 8 or 9. Who can honestly come away from that game and say, you know what, I give my all and I tried my best? I think Fabio had a decent half, and I know he really splits the fans. I think Hwang tried, but he was poor in terms of quality in the final third.
But Ron, when Hwang gets the ball, and he did it, I don't rate him at all, but in a couple of times where he got it, he turned, he went forward, there was nothing. When a Brighton player got the ball in our half or just in our half, but there were runners everywhere, there were options, there were people going beyond the ball. You can't. We could have had anyone up front on Saturday and it wouldn't have made any difference because they were so isolated and on their own. And that's where I just don't see any game plan, any style of play at the moment.
I think it was really noticeable how immobile our midfield is. Like, as much as we love Moutinho and we love Neves, Dendonka's the most mobile midfielder we've got. And then you look at the guys that they got playing in midfield, the young lad that have just signed, Caicedo, he was running all over the shop. And Wepu was...
Yeah.
They can go both ways, do the dirty work one way, do the quality the other way. We haven't got that guy.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And that's... And I mean, we'll come on to more of this in a bit, but that's not an alarming thing for Wolves because there's been games this season when you thought, when it's been Neves and Moutinho, it's looked great. And when them two are both conducting the orchestra, it's a beautiful thing to see. One's tidying up, one's creating, they're both winning the ball back, they're both getting stuck in. But I could kind of forgive Neves a bit for his first game back. I'm not going to give him too much stick. But like you say, Tyler, it was a strange thing. Why would you bring someone back for 45 minutes then? And then when Semedo got injured, we'd lost all our subs. So
exactly,
that was it. It seemed as for a team that's got that had an outside chance of European football, rolling the dice in a player that's been out for 6 weeks, 2 months. It didn't seem to make any sense. I mean, I don't know if you'd heard anything, Alex. I mean, from what I gather, I think it was a pre-planned sub that was always going to be the case. But is a Premier League game half a game is that the right place to ease a player back in of Ruben Neves' calibre?
That's what he said post game, wasn't he? He said post game, the plan was to give him 45 minutes. Well, that's just bizarre.
It's not a friendly.
I can see why you would start him, because if you aren't fully certain that he'll last, or you are worried about him potentially breaking down, then don't bring him on for him then to break down. And then you have to waste 2 subs rather than 1.
Yeah.
But even saying that, well, if you're having both thoughts, surely he shouldn't play.
It doesn't. It almost feels like, I don't know. What happened to the days when clubs would organise behind closed doors friendlies, when there's a couple of teams that have got a few players come back from injuries, have a private game, doesn't have to be an under-23s game, so if you don't want to play them at that level or that standard, and easing back in a private, there'll be teams that will be happy to play in one of those games. It just didn't seem to make any sense. And then the other sub at half-time, now, I'm still sticking up for Fabio. I still see a footballer in there somewhere. Tyler would argue that he didn't score enough goals or look like it, and I would agree with that as well. But this is a guy in the last few games that, for me, has looked hungry. He's looked someone that if one of the forwards is going to create something, even if it's not for himself, you feel like it's going to be Fabio. Now, is it because Alex is an easy target? Because it certainly feels like, I feel like he's making the subs in order of seniority, not in terms of who's changing the games or who's looking the best.
I think he's always going to be. He's an easy sub for a number of reasons, isn't he? And he's always going to be an easy target because of how much he costs. First of all, and unfortunately for the kid, that we're never going to get away from that unless he is at Wolves for the next 10 years and he scores steeple level goals. We're never really going to get away from the fact that he costs that much money. Also, and this is just looking at from the outside in, Bruno Lage wasn't the guy in charge when he was signed. So he's got no real predisposition to, I need to give that guy minutes because I was very much in favour of him coming, like perhaps Nuno would have been. So maybe he just doesn't really care that much about it. Maybe he's getting some pressure from above that, look, we've put this massive outlay on this kid. He can't just be getting 10 minutes here and there. And in actual fact, Bruno Lage doesn't actually rate him that much. I mean, this is just guesswork and just me speaking. Perhaps he thinks that, and then he gives him 45 minutes, and he thinks, no, get him off. You know, I've seen enough. I'm with Tyler on this. I think he works hard, and he runs his bollocks off, and he puts his all in. But does he really get into those scoring positions enough? Does he look like he's going to score goals enough? And you've had that about a number of players at the moment. I agree.
In reverse to that, though, guys, what I would say is, what are we creating for him? He's feeding on scraps, and he's being judged on. He's literally been drip fed now and again. He's been judged on the most minimal of service in a team that's the most uncreative in the Premier League, alongside Norwich. That's really hard to swallow. So how can we judge him if we're not feeding him? So reversing it round to Hwang, I almost feel like and you could never prove this and they would never admit it, I almost feel like there's some pressure above the playing because I just can't understand how he started every game. I mean, yes, I'm going to say I thought he tried and he had a bit of an impact driving the ball forward in the first half on Saturday. That's the best he'd been. Newcastle, anonymous. Burnley got in the way of Jimenez. We had one chance to put someone through and mess that up.
I think Hwang's almost in a perfect storm at the moment, though, because seemingly they've made a decision that Trincao, no, we're not really feeling it. That's done. Pedro Neto is still working his way back from his injury and he's getting minutes under his belt, but he's not the Pedro Neto we knew before.
No, way off.
Podence is wherever Podence is at the moment. Who knows? Having looked the best attacking player for quite some time. So Hwang's probably the only guy that really he's got there and he's thinking he can play as one of my forwards. He can play if we change to a 3. I need him in the team for that flexibility because Bruno Lage speaks a lot about flexibility and being able to adapt and having players who can adapt. So maybe that's working in Hwang's favour.
But what about productivity though? When he gets in the final third, I mean, can anyone think of a time when he's consistently beat a man and set his teammate up? It just doesn't happen. And again, he may be a victim to the system because it's so negative and predictable at times. I mean, what happened going back, and we've said about this the last few weeks, what happened to those opening 3 games of the season when we were electric? It was so good to watch. What's happened? Because we're at the point now when we've got nothing to lose. Yeah, I mean, yes, there's some really difficult fixtures and we risk an absolute pasting, but the bravery, the entertainment, and the willingness to take risks at the start of the season. Adama Traore, desperately unlucky not to score, but unplayable those first few games. The football, the press, statistically, our XG was off the roof. It was just off the charts. It was incredible. Yes, we had to tone it down a little bit, and then we got the result at Watford. But from all that flirting of beautiful football, that this is what we've got, and we thought, oh yeah, this is what we've been waiting for, because it was quite stale for a year. We're pretty much, for me, where we were a year ago when we lost 4-0 at home to Burnley.
But who was the front three at the start of the season? If I'm right, it was Adama, Trincao, Jimenez. Was it for those first few games?
I think so, yeah.
One of them's not here anymore. One of them can't get a game and he's on the bench, and Jimenez jewelry's out, isn't it? So you're looking at the personnel. One big change. Trincao looked like retired Messi, didn't he? The first few games, to be fair. Adama looked unplayable, but the cynical people would say, "Oh, it was August. He was looking for a move," but we still benefited from it. So 2 out of the front 3 are totally different. Hwang hadn't signed then, had he? But then Hwang seemed to get in the team very quickly, didn't he, after he scored against Watford, and then he stayed in the team. He got the goal, so that was almost keeping him in the team potentially longer than it could have done. You mentioned the word productivity, and I think Fabio and Hwang are both in the same boat. You could talk about them until you blew in the face. Neither of them at the moment produce enough. But you are right. They play for teams that don't create chances, and it must be an endless task playing up front for Wolves at the moment because there's nothing to go off. The wing backs don't push forward. The wing backs don't look like creating anything, whipping balls in. There looks nothing coming from midfield. You can sort of see why they haven't scored many goals between them, because they're feeding off scraps, aren't they? Ultimately,
yeah. But looking forward now, these last few games, because I'm not going to even talk about the European fixtures now. I'm sick of building myself up for every weekend, teasing myself, thinking it's not going to happen, and then West Ham lose again. I think Man U are going to winning tonight, and the last time I looked, but I don't even know why I'm talking about it. And every week West Ham lose because West Ham have got other priorities elsewhere. And if it was Wolves, I'd want to be resting and focusing, because a major trophy and a potential place in the Champions League is enormous for anybody, never mind West Ham. So you can understand that. But the Wolves have had so many opportunities in this last 2 months, and West Ham have just pick up 3 draws from those poor performances, and Wolves are currently sitting on the same points. I don't understand. It is just so frustrating. And again, I'm going to sound hypocritical, because have we overachieved in the league and our position in terms of statistically? Yes, we have. Jose Sarr's probably say Wolves, a couple of games, a couple of wins. But also, if Wolves have had a decent January, they're pushing, because the middle of this sort of middle third behind the top 2, are they really that good, Alex?
It's going to end the season, isn't it, by the look of it, with the so-called Big Six being the Big Six again. And it comes down, even you've got seasons where Tottenham start, as they do under Nuno, that quickly sours, and then they get Conte in. So he's almost been like a cheat code for Spurs, because if they'd have got that managerial appointment wrong, you could have seen them finishing the season mid-table, because Kane wasn't fancying it. Son was doing well, but he wasn't anywhere near what he's playing like now. Chelsea looked great for a while, and then they've fallen away. Man United, they're a mess, but they're Manchester United, We've seen people question, like, why would Ruben Neves go to Man United? It's Man United.
Yeah.
If you're part of the team that turns Man United back round, you're going to be feted as a hero for quite some time. And also, they can also double or triple your wages, whoever you are. And then Arsenal have had a really, really good growing season. It seems like a long time ago that Arsenal were level on points with us at the bottom of the table after 3 games, having lost all of them. I think it's difficult, and I would say more difficult.
Those 2 I'd say, they're better than Wolves. But then, I'd say Arsenal and Spurs. But I look at Man United, and it's hard to beat.
They have match winners. They have guys. Ronaldo is in an awful team. He's scoring however many goals. Sancho will create chances out of nothing if he's given enough minutes. Bruno Fernandes, the same. They have those guys that will get 10, 15 goals and assists a season. What's Wolves' top goal scorer? 6, and then your next guy's probably got 3 or 4. It's a different grade.
Yeah.
So even when they're poor, they have players who can pick something out of nothing. We don't have that. We haven't got a guy that does something out of nothing to turn a game. It's got to be a good team move or a nice bit of play or something like that. It's never, oh my God, he took a great touch, beat a man and drilled it from 25 yards, and it's a wonderful goal from one player that breaks a dead even game. We haven't got that individual. We've got a really good team, and that the first 11, as we've seen with Wolves so often, they can give most teams a very good game. But when it falls down on that a little bit, the squad's just not there, and there's a big drop. There's a big drop off at Wolves, I think, from when you get past the starting 11, maybe the 12th man, maybe the 13th man. Then you start to drop down, I think, and you can carry 1 or 2. But when there has to be a bit of rotation going on and players are tired and hitting certain limits, they just can't really cope with it.
Yeah, there does seem to. I mean, you make a really good point there. And although he's not the level of the players that you mentioned, I don't think people realise how much we've missed Daniel Podence. That guy that can create something from nothing. He can drop a shoulder. He can buy a yard. Yes, his stats weren't off the chart, but Wolves look completely different without him. They look so.
If his stats were off the chart, he wouldn't be playing for Wolves.
Yeah, that's true. But
if he's scoring and assisting 15, 20 goals a season, he'd be playing at that next level because the quality's there. It's just putting it together regularly.
We just look so predictable and flat now. There has been some good games this season. I mean, Man United away, we were there, Tyler, that was good. I went to Spurs away, was great. I mean, there's been a few half games as well. Leeds at home, the first half was good. Villa at home, the first half was good. Everton at home. And then after that,
but that's almost the thing I don't get. Like, we've won 15 games and we've lost 15 games, and I know that's just a stat. It could be a useless fact, but it's like we were nicking them 1-0, weren't we, early in the season? I think we all said, "Oh, how sustainable is this? Can we keep doing this?" And now we found, no, we can't keep doing this because now we're on the other end of those tight games, like Alex said, where if we go a goal down, it's very, very unlikely we're going to come back. So that first goal is massive. If we get it, we'll probably go on and win the game. If we don't get it, we'll probably lose the game. And that's a very basic thing to say, isn't it? It shouldn't make that much of a difference, should it? And we either win or we lose. And that sounds stupid.
If you're an opposing manager, get the first goal, lads. We're not going to lose today, unless it's at Villa Park when it's the biggest fluke you've ever seen in your life. But you know what I mean.
We fluked one comeback all season, basically.
That's the only time, isn't it? That's the only time they've been behind.
And we've got to be honest, we didn't deserve that either. But we'll take it because it was amazing. But we were terrible that day. The game should have been over. So to turn that around, it was.
But the thing as well is that, we're reading a lot about this same group of players as in recent years and this, that and the other, and the squad hasn't really evolved or whatever. Well, was it 2 years ago, the Wolves half-time record at the end of the season was about 18th in the league. Games were being drawn or they were behind at half-time all the time. And their second half record was like 3rd or 4th in the league, and they ended up finishing 7th overall. So how's that team that was... Okay, you remember the games over week after week. It was really slow and sluggish in the first half. You get 0-0 at half time, or maybe it was 1-0 down because there was a goal that something had happened, so there'd been a goal. Those games were constant, and then the second half they came out and it was like, right, they're alive. They're coming back at teams. They'd be behind. They would be pressing teams back and going for it. There was that ability to fight back. Then now it's the same group of players we're being told, but that fight back isn't happening at all and hasn't happened all season.
No.
So where's that gone? What's changed for that to occur?
There doesn't seem to be. I always felt in games then, though, Alex, that we looked like we believed when we had the ball, when obviously Yotta's not here, when he was driving at people, when Doherty was overlapping, you always believed that there was a goal. The Molineux was a different place then. Even if you're away from home, you always believed. I mean, my favourite one of those, we're 1-0 down at Spurs at Wembley. I think it was New Year's Eve or in between Christmas and New Year, and we won 3-1. And you just felt, even at 1-0 at half-time after Kane scored that worldie, you just thought, and like you said, we just thought, we believed it was going to turn around. But there doesn't look like there's any belief. There doesn't look like there's a real plan. But and I know we've talked about this game a lot now, but I want to sort of focus now on in terms of player attitude and application, because there's one thing losing, there's one thing getting smashed, but there's another thing giving up and not doing your best. Now, you couldn't scientifically prove, I mean, from looking in the stands, that the players didn't try their best, but that to me looked like a team that weren't really that bothered. I'm sure them boos would have hurt some of the players, but some of them are going around and it looked like they didn't give a shit. And that's the hardest thing for me to swallow. If you get beat 3-0 by the better team, but you've had a go and you've showed a bit of heart, you can think, you know what, we had a go, but it was nothing. It was, and I was quite passionate after the game in some of the tweets I put out, calling them gutless. And I thought it was gutless because it was a full house, and you know what I mean, we didn't even get effort from, I'd say, even full effort from half the players. So I don't know, what was your guys' take on the application of the team?
I'll use the phrase, they were just going through the motions, weren't they? That's the only thing I could think of, really. And I tweeted after the game, I can't remember seeing a Wolves team not try. They clearly weren't trying. I think you said, Ryan's no science to it. Everyone that was there would say the same thing. There was, you know, like a few people. Cody seemed quieter. Bolly was just sort of waltzing round again for the second goal. That he was just sort of walking in the box. Sace was just Sace that we've seen since the new year.
What's happened to him? He was set
before running round, but
before the AFCON, Sace was probably having his best season for Wolves. He was linking with Ait-Nouri when he was there. He was in for tackles. He was pinging balls down the line. The guy that's come back from the AFCON looks a totally different footballer.
Alex probably knows more because of the trade he's in, but there's a lot of clubs interested in signing him. Has he agreed, or has he made his mind if he's going to leave already? He might not be in it. You know, you don't know, do you? That's really.
But he certainly doesn't look like he's playing for his future at Wolves, does he?
I'd like to see Toty given a game. Like, there's no reason not to. With some of these fringe players now, I think we need to start seeing, really. If anyone got dropped for the next game, they couldn't moan about it, could they? Not one of them. Probably
Sarr is the only one. Otherwise, it's hard to argue. But I'm sure Fabio will be dropped regardless, and will. Well, but just it's a real concern that a bunch of professionals with yet another lifeline for European football. And I know this is a crazy thing to say, but if you were watching that, you could almost say they look like they're playing. They've got a bonus not to make Europe. They was that disinterested and showed that much. I'm trying to be polite and not and not use unpleasantries, but it is so disappointing to see people who are lucky enough to wear them colours and that shirt not give their all. I don't mind if we lose. I've watched Wolves' best part of 1,000 games. I've seen many defeats and many spankings. Something I was like looking at some records and stuff. I remember going back to the Southampton game when we lost 6-0 at home. The South Bank stayed and clapped the team off because they never stopped. You know what? There was some incredible. They tried. There was some incredible finish from Southampton, but this whole South Bank stayed and clapped them off because you know what? You're getting pasted, but they played for the shirt, and you were proud of them. You thought, you know what? It's almost past embarrassment now because this bunch of players are really playing for us. They care, and you know what? They didn't stop. So I don't know, mate.
They'll forgive a lot, won't they? But they won't forgive a lack of application. And there's a reason the ground was that empty at the final whistle because. Yeah. I think that's why. I think because there was no effort, there was no application from the players, and people thought, so I was one of them. When the second goal went in, we might as well have all gone home then. We were never coming back, you know, and I think that's why it was so empty because there was a lack of application on Saturday.
I think, and it's playing devil's advocate a bit, but if you're one of the guys playing at the back, if you're Cody or Bolly or Sarr, or Sace, or even Moutinho in midfield. And you're doing your job, and you're, you know, doing what you're there to do, and you're passing the ball forwards, and you're seeing it go forwards, and then you're seeing it come back again, and it's just that on repeat. At some point in a game, if that keeps happening, that you've just got to be like, what the hell is going on? And you're going to lose a little bit of your focus because every time you win the ball, you go, oh, it's coming back. I think that has got to be something that players will never say it, but it's got to be something that's working on the mind of some of the guys. Not in attack. Some of the guys in midfield, some of the guys further back, that no matter how well I do my job at the moment, we're not really getting anywhere at the other end of the pitch. Now, why that's happened in recent weeks, you know, who knows? But so I can kind of size, as you say, he's lost his way completely. I can kind of see it, but these guys getting a little bit frustrated, and then mistakes creep in, and you've things like Bolly and Welbeck makes a quick run off him, and then he's always behind, but he's trying to get back, but then trips him, and there's your penalty. Stuff like that is going to happen if you just lose that focus for that split second. You become that little bit more frustrated, and incidents like that. And I can see that, and I can see players at 2-0 kind of, and Brighton are knocking it around and playing for fun, and you're thinking to yourself, my God, what is the point? Now they're professional players, so they shouldn't be, but they're human as well. So perhaps that's something that comes into the thinking of it, and it shouldn't do, because as we know, they've spoken all season about next game or for the next game, and we'll see at the end of the season where the points are and that kind of thing. But then obviously they've become kind of aware that they've been in this European battle, and then they've just faltered. But
what's the difference?
That's no excuse, of course.
It don't even look like they're going to score a goal now. Never the drop off in the last few weeks has been. I mean, I'm not going to call it sensational, but it's the most crazy drop I've ever seen. And at least the half against Villa was good. The opening half, Wolves could have been out of sight that first half. It was good. It was hungry. The passing was good. They were breaking. The wing backs were getting forward. There just doesn't seem to be any interest now. They seem short of ideas and short of interest. But the way they were passing around with no zip on it, there was no one pinging it. It was just get the ball, pass it. And like you said, that must be, if you're a centre-back there and the ball just keeps coming back to you again and again and again. I mean, it didn't help that Stacey's distribution was woeful, as many were, but it just...
But right, we haven't scored goals for, is this 2 seasons now? Maybe even 2.5 seasons?
Well, probably since Jimenez's injury, really.
I'd say since probably Jota and Doherty going, to be honest. I think when them two were inside...
Your second and third top scorers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And as much as you can say Semedo's an upgrade on Doherty had any...
I don't think he is, personally. I personally, as I've said to Ryan, I don't necessarily see him as an upgrade because of the style and the way we played. You see the old tweets saying about, this game 2 or 3 years ago, and Doherty would be flying, Jota would be flying.
I think horses for courses. Gone, I can't argue with the stats. I think with Doherty, he was allowed to get so far up and didn't have to track back in certain times because his timing into the box was so impeccable in the runs. Wolves really played to his strengths because he would often arrive late with a cross, or, there was a goal away at Braga when he ran in and headed home. There was a cross, I think that came over from Jota that crossed it in. His timing was so good getting forward. Now, we don't play that way anymore. He wouldn't be...
We haven't replaced Jota either. Jota carried the ball forward, didn't he? He'd pick it up in his own half and he would drive forward. We haven't got anyone that does that now. And he just got us up the pitch.
The thing with Jota is that he was a diamond that they found, and hence why he's at Liverpool and doing so well there. It's hard to replace the diamond that you get with another diamond. And while you get the whatever the fee is for him, 40 million, and all right, you do a deal to only have 4 million of it up front, and then you get the rest later. You're then going to spend that 40 million. You're not going to spend it like for like. You're going to spend probably 10 million on 4 players to try and hopefully get a diamond, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get another. And I think that's the problem. I think that Doherty, as well as you say, Semedo is a better footballer than Matt Doherty. I don't think anyone will disagree on that. But Matt Doherty and that,
what he brings to the side,
it's kind of like the old baseball thing, isn't it? With the Oakland A's and the Moneyball stuff. Okay, these guys, some of the people they signed were signed for specific jobs just because they can get on base, or they can do this or that. Matt Doherty is as good an off the ball runner as anyone in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's off the ball was incredible, and Nuno's got. I mean, there's not many players that have a decent Championship season, but then are even better in the Premier League. Matt Doherty did that. Yeah. He suited that side of the pitch was just suited for Matt Doherty, and you don't know what you've got until it's gone. But Wolves don't play that style anymore, and I don't think you could have allowed Max Kilman or Bolly by themselves to have no fullback.
They were trying to become. You used the word nice for Brighton earlier. Wolves have tried to transition from being a bit of a very much a counter-attacking team who will defend and then hit you, and they're not going to hit you often, but when they do hit you, it's going to hurt. They've become a team that we want to play. We want to be a bit more nice. We want to be a bit more easy on the eye. We want to hit you a little bit more. but actually we're not hitting you as hard. They've kind of got stuck between a rock and a hard place, because then you've
I think
had
that's
a
it.
manager come in who obviously wanted to play forward at the back and play a certain way, and he's had to kind of change his ideals that, actually I still need to play free at the back, and I still have to do the things that these players are used to.
So I mean, that's a really good point. Now we're going to slightly digress on that, but if he's like, I've got to stick with these players, then I mean, and I know I'm just playing devil's advocate now. What's the point? What was the point in changing the manager if you're not going to back the manager to allow him to play his philosophy? Because for me, I think we've wasted a year. I know I keep saying it. This is very similar to Burnley last year when we got spanked 4-0 at home. There's another same time of the season, springtime. Not a lot of care in the game. I just feel like that's 12 months wasted, and it's 12 months closer to losing Neves, which will probably be in the summer. I just think this season has just been a waste, to be honest, guys.
I don't think you are playing devil's advocate. I think it's a totally fair question. If you'd never seen Nuno and Bruno, you'd struggle to notice the difference in the last 2 seasons, wouldn't you? And I think what we heard was they brought this exciting Bruno in, young coach, won the league, scoring 100 plus goals in Portugal, etc., etc. And for whatever reason,
I don't think we completed 100 passes Saturday, did we?
and I think you're right. It has been disappointing. There's been some highs, like you say, Ryan, and we've been knocking on Europe's door. But I think we've probably said for a while we don't really think we're good enough to do that. And I agree with you. It's a season wasted. It's a funny season. Big summer required, isn't it? Ultimately, it's just whether or not that's going to happen.
I kind of disagree a little bit, because I wouldn't call it a season wasted. I think if they do finish 8th as they look like doing, then it's a good season. If you look at it as they're finishing 8th in the Premier League, where else are they really going to go? The sixth above them, you wouldn't expect to finish above. And
if you're looking at numbers, I agree with that, Alex. If you're looking at numbers, and people have said to me when I've been moaning recently, well, you're 8th, what are you moaning about? Well, that's a fair point. If you're basing it on stats, numbers, prize money, yeah, it's a good season. But people that like us that are watching Wolves a lot, we can see that the wheels have completely fallen off. There's no style anymore. There's no pattern. There isn't really an idea. The hunger's gone. The players that did progress have now sort of steadied out a little bit. I'm concerned now. I mean, we take this form into next season, Wolves are going to be a bottom third side.
Well,
because
this is your thing, isn't it? Is if they've regressed this much in the last 6 weeks, 2 months, say, and you end the season, say they end the season now, you've got 4 games left. All right, you're probably going to beat Norwich because everybody has.
Now you've done it.
Yeah, I know, but but your other 3 games, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, you're probably going to lose those 3. You would think. So if you end this season and that's one win, 2 wins in 10 or something like that to end the season, how many managers have we seen before end seasons like that, and then they go into the next season and they start poorly and they're sacked, but the club is still giving them the summer. And Dean Smith's a good example. Dean Smith, really good season at Villa last year, and Barkley and Grealish were playing tremendous. Then Grealish got injured and they fell off a bit towards the end of the season. They then sold Grealish in the summer, 100 million. You get that money, right? Who are we going to spend it on? Well, your manager wants Danny Ings. Okay, get Danny Ings. Doesn't really fit in your team because you've also saw Emi Buendia, and you go and get Leon Bailey as well. And then you've got Christian Perslow, who, when things are going well, is always in the press, giving it the big great job I'm doing. But when it's not going so well, he's a bit quiet. And suddenly, Dean Smith has a bad start to this season, and he's out the door. But you've just spent 100 million that you've got in for Jack Grealish on players he wanted, or he at least had a big say in. And now you've got a new manager, Steven Gerrard, who comes in. And one of the first things Steven Gerrard is Ollie Watkins is my centre forward. Danny Ings, I don't really have a place in my starting lineup for him, especially when I bring Coutinho in online. So there's 20 odd million for Danny Ings, who was already a short-term big wages investment at his age and with his injury record. And that's the kind of thing where Wolves now are looking at, because, okay, Bruno Lage, you finish 8th and it's based on a very good start to the season. You've fallen away at the end. It's going to take a lot of balls for ownership to turn around and go, thanks, but let's part ways now. Well,
let's focus on that now, because I mean we've done 40 minutes and it's been flying through. There's been lots of questions. I mean, we'll do some questions as well. There's been lots of questions about Bruno going forward. I mean, as each week goes by, I'm beginning to lose more and more faith. That performance Saturday screams of problems. I tweeted out there was, I had information. I was told that there was a training ground bust up and some disagreements regarding tactics. that would mirror with the performance if people aren't agreeing with the manager. It almost feels like there were some late changes to the team because there was a lot of harmony. So I'm starting to get worried, guys. Let's assume we have to sell Ruben Neves, which is one of the questions that are going to come on to. And there's a rebuilding job then. You've probably got to tweak the style. Does he go to 4 at the back? Are we going to go into the summer then fully backing this guy? Are you happy and prepared to do that, Alex?
I mean, this is how the hell do you want me to answer that?
That's what you're here for, mate.
Well, yeah, yes or no.
That's the thing. Absolute and on the fence, completely on the fence on it. I don't know whether it's the right thing that you say. Oh, thanks for the season, but it's not quite gone as we wanted, so let's go our different ways. I don't know if you go, okay, the end of the season wasn't good enough. We're going to bring in players in the summer. And of course, this hints at if you don't want to, if you are going to stick with him, how much say is he going to have in transfers over the summer when perhaps the board and the higher ups are thinking to themselves, well, we didn't finish the season great. And if we start poorly and the fans start to turn, it might not last till the end of October. So how much do we want to give him on players he specifically wants?
We absolutely can't do that. It's either all in or all out. If you're going to back this guy in the summer, the season's already falling apart now. The performances have gone downhill badly. If you're going to back him, you fully back him. You let him have a say. You let him pick his players, and we do it. We can't afford to tiptoe into next season. Say again, Alex.
How can you let him pick his players if they tiptoe into it? And this is
that's what I'm saying.
We can't. Scott Sellers saying, "I have final say," basically.
Yeah, we can't do that, Tyler. I mean, I think I know you're answering this. Are you confident now in which potential? Let's say Wolves get 50-60 million for Neves and they spend another 25 on top. Are you confident of Bruno Lage having an 85 million pound transfer window in the summer and spending that kind of money?
I don't know because I don't know the guy well enough, to be honest. I don't like sitting on the fence, but am I right in thinking we've lost 3 games in a row potentially? If we don't beat Norwich and we lose the others, it's very hard to not just find being sacked, isn't it? That could be it's hypothetical, but say we lose 4 out of
that's 7.
That's 7 out of 8 defeats. That's relegation form, whoever you are. And what manager would survive that? I know we're not guaranteed to lose those games, but it's likely, isn't it? So say we do, I think he's got to go. I don't think you can lose 7 out of 8 of the last games of the season. I don't show going to pre-season and give that man, what you said, Ryan, 70, 80 million pounds to rebuild it. There's obviously something missing. If you had to ask me, will he be there next season? I'd probably want to see a new face.
Okay,
if we lose 7 out of 8, I'd want him.
Okay, then here we go. Yes or no answers. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'll answer it myself now. Whether you think, forget whether you're thinkable here, and this has to be yes or no. Do you want him here next season, Chris?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, Alex. It's all the good questions on there, mate.
Fucking hell, mate. Do I want him?
Okay, if you were Jeff Sheen, you have to decide: are you fully backing him, or are you saying thank you at the end of the season?
I think I'm saying thank you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement as well. I mean,
I'm not against. I'm completely not against him staying. If he's going to be given the tools, if he's having the same transfers and it is this. Okay, I've done a season. I've been pragmatic. I've got the best I think out of the players that I had. I now have got 5 or 6 going because of contracts or Neves for however much and whatever. I now need X amount and I need this kind of player here and that guy there, and then I can do this. If he's got a plan to make the changes he wants and to, as we want to see, the more proactive football, more attacking. If he's got a plan to do that and his plan is sound, I'm not against him being that guy at the start of next season.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
If I'm Jeff Sheen, I'm looking at a lot of numbers and I'm looking at the performances and I'm seeing the fans all leave early and that kind of thing. I've got real questions in my mind of going, perhaps he isn't quite the guy.
He hasn't been backed at all, Ryan. The one thing he's got in his defence, he's not.
He hasn't been backed, and I'm not waving the flag saying Bruno out. But equally, if I found out tomorrow he was leaving, I'm not going to be gutted because he's at the start of the season, as I mentioned earlier on, he teased us with his ideas. He flirted with us. I'd never been so positive after losing 3 games and not scoring as I was at the end of this. I mean, we've just lost 3 games on the bounce and not scored now. But the difference in losing the first 3 games of the season to where we are now, there was belief and positivity. This guy's going to entertain us. There's goals here. If we keep this up, we will change. That's gone. There's absolutely nothing.
What does it say about him that he backtracked on his philosophy and he gave up on that after 3 games?
Because it's not like we were unlucky in those games. Yes, there's only so much you can do. And, you know what I mean? He probably had to be more pragmatic just to get that first win on the board. You know what I mean? Just to get us moving a little bit. I understand that. But he's given me nothing recently. And I'm concerned. I would, like Alex, if he gets the money in the summer and he gets a big choice, go for it. Let's fully back him. But there can be no middle ground. We're not sure. Because Wolves are slipping down the slope now. We'll be a bottom 3rd team next season without proper backing and change. Because it is stale. It's slow. I mean, as I said, it's alleged that some of the players and the manager are at tactical loggerheads. It's ugly. So it needs a freshen up. And that needs to be fully with him or fully without him.
Agreed, yeah. I think that's something we'd all agree on. It's got to be one or the other. It can't be half-assed again like it has been this season. It's got to be one or the other, yeah. But was he brought in as a stopgap? There's a lot of rumours about that, isn't there? Was he brought in just for a year to steady the ship? He's obviously not been given any money. Did they not trust him in money?
Okay, then if that's the case, then, and I'm not saying I would have done this, but what if he's a stopgap for a year? What was the point of getting rid of Nuno?
I think Nuno was shot though, wasn't
he? Yeah, he did look. He
was done. He was done. Yeah.
He did look.
He had to go. He had to go.
There was no point. There was no point carrying that on because that had run its course.
Yeah. Let's. I mean, we're absolutely flying with time, and let's bring some questions in. Matt Whitten, how do we explain 15 games where we've gone behind and got nothing? Small squad with little experience on the bench, poor substitutions, lack of desire of fight, or plan B. I'll start with that one. Well, I mean, we've talked about a lot of that in the show. It's that, and that's again, we can sort of link that into what we've just been talking about, having Bruno for the future. That's an alarming stat for any football club at any level. And it just seems if Wolves don't score first, they're done. That's a massive worry. Yes, Neto's not come back the same. Yes, we shot ourselves in the foot getting rid of Adama Traore, which I still don't understand. And the manager probably has backtracked, as Tyler mentioned then, in terms of tactics. So, no, I can't explain it, but it does worry me. Matt, thanks very much for your question. I think we know the answer to this one. You can have this one, Tyler. Mark Poulton, if we had lost 7 out of the first 10 games, would Bruno still be in a job? I don't advocate sacking managers after one bad run, but performances are now at the same level as this year under Nuno. Tyler?
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think Alex nailed it with the Dean Smith example. The worst thing that we can do is go through the summer with him, and then that does happen. You do lose 7 out of the first 10, and then you're getting rid of him anyway. So I think you're dead right, Ryan. It's got to be one or the other. And I think we probably will end up losing 7 or 8 out of 10 at the end of the season. Does it matter when in the season it is? Not many managers would survive that run of games or that run of results. I think, to be fair, Potter struggled at Brighton, didn't he? He's turned them round. It's just whether they trust him to turn it round ultimately.
Well, Potter went like something. He did go something like, I think, 2
something stupid.
Something like that, and it stuck with him, and he's kind of paid it back with the big wins lately. But I mean, but he's built up. You know, the difference there is that, and like with Nuno beforehand, they built up 2, 3 years, 4 years of credit. Where Bruno,
he's got no credit.
Half a really good season, and then you get return, and it's like.
That's a great point. The credit in the bank, isn't it? He hasn't really got much.
Let's bring another question in from Box to Box. You can have this one, Alex, and you can thank me off air later on. If we're going to be self-sufficient, then you need people that know what they're doing. Do you think we have that? Now, I'll start off the answer on that. We have to remember that regardless, Fosun have taken Wolves from bottom third of the Championship to an FA Cup semi-final, a European quarter-final, 2 sevenths, probably an 8th, and a bottom third finish. So, you know what? There's a lot of credit there. But are we at the point now when some of the staff behind the scenes have taken Wolves as far as they can. Good luck, Alex.
Well, there's been a big drain of stuff, hasn't there, behind the scenes? Kind of the figurehead, shall we say, Laurie Dalrymple, names escaping me, the sporting director.
Farewell went, yeah.
Guys who were in positions who, for whatever reason, departed, and Jeff Shee took on certain people's roles. Scott Sellers got promoted. Other people have got promoted. It's one of those things that you will have an opinion on it, but you won't ultimately know unless you work behind the scenes with those people, or you work at other clubs and have to deal with those people. We don't see what Scott Sellers does on a day-to-day basis, or that kind of thing. So we don't know how proactive he is. We don't know how he works with his scouts. We don't know how he works with his scouts in comparison to how Kevin Felwell
just taking that a direction off then, Alex. We can only judge on what we've seen in terms of incoming business this season. And this, this is one of the questions I'm taking off somebody, but other than Jose Sarr, have we improved recently in the transfer windows? Because that's a real concern to me. Yes, I do not mind this Portuguese connection. In fact, I love it. I love now the fury it creates amongst other clubs and fans. Fine, because we have really benefited from that Portuguese relationship. I mean, we've only got to look at some of our best players. Yotta's gone, obviously, but Neves, Matinho, Patricio in his first 2 years. Fine, I've got no issue with that. But are we at a point that if we can't convince one of those Portuguese players to join, I mean, it doesn't look good otherwise?
No, and the thing is that as clubs who have dealt in this manner with Jorge Mendes in the past have seen, after that initial kind of influx of the real quality, and here's these guys, and it's all about favours and paying it forward when you're working with guys like Mendes, and when you are so kind of reliant on agents to help with your business. And this was a big thing at Arsenal. Arsenal became so reliant on Kia Jarabchin not too long ago. And he was doing a lot of... Willian was a client of his and got moved to Arsenal, free transfer, huge contract. Others, Kia Jarabchin was involved, fingerprints in deals. That's changed under Mikel Arteta. It's become very much a Mikel Arteta kind of... He's kind of leading it much more along with Edu rather than Edu taking advice from Kia Jarabchin. So it's kind of that thing where Wolves had that with Mendes, and you get the first influx, you get Jota, you get Ruben Neves, you get the quality. When you move up into the Premier League and you need that backbone, here's Portugal's international goalkeeper, here's Mexico's centre forward who, he's got quite a decent strike rate.
That's probably the best transfer window we've ever had, by the way. Well, that one coming up was incredible.
Yeah. But then after that, after you move on Jota, and it's okay, I've got these two kids at Lazio. Now, one's Neto, he's going to be a star if he can get back fully fit. Your other guy we've barely seen him, Bruno Jordao. So you have those kind of things where, things are a bit hit and miss. And then I always think, do other guys then, you get into this kind of favour game that he is a master of. Do other guys kind of get led into it? Because Wolves did a deal with Liverpool for Diogo Jota. Liverpool were questioning whether to go for him or go for Ismaila Sarr. They go with Jota because Wolves were more willing to say, okay, pay us some now, and then we'll take the rest in instalments later. Now, it's not unusual for clubs to take deals in instalments, but it was below, here's 4 million. Liverpool got him and Thiago for 9 million down payment that summer.
Incredible. That's just incredible business.
So Wolves do that. But then on the other hand, you're going, okay, we quite like this Kylian Hoover kid. We'll give you 13 million for him. Oh, okay, Liverpool. There's a big joke around, don't do business with Liverpool. You don't win. You just can't win. And so do people get a bit too clever that, okay, I can give a favour here and then I'll get something back and that kind of thing. It's just difficult. And as we say, you look at the last couple of transfer windows at Wolves and you've been thinking, right, where they do need this top quality addition. And okay, they looked at Sven Botman from Lille and he didn't want to go. Okay, that's fine. He's now going to paid off for him not to leave Lille last summer. He's going to get a big move probably to AC Milan.
AC Milan, yeah, going there with Renato Sanchez.
I saw mentioned, okay, they were interested in him in January again, and they were interested in Bruno Guimaraes in January again. Well, everybody and his dog knew that Bruno Guimaraes was going to go to Newcastle for huge wages and a plus 40 million fee. I don't think Wolves are in that sort of market. So
But
again,
I
what are they
mean,
looking at? It's difficult for.
but
It's difficult
what,
for Wolves in the market they're in because of the money
just
they
let me.
don't want to spend.
If you look at Palace and West Ham, for example, look at some of the players they've picked up from the Championship.
Look where Palace are in the league at the same time, though.
Yeah, but
He's getting a lot of plaudits, Patrick Vieira, and he's got to a semi-final, and they've done some really good stuff. And they look Brighton, they've got a lot of quality young players.
But look so
where they are in the league.
some of those players they've picked up from the Championship, and even Jared Bowen at West Ham coming from the Championship. These guys were available for not a lot of money in the world.
Jared Bowen got a big contract at West Ham. Big
So
contract for a Championship player.
So
something like 60 grand a week, big signing on fee, and then after a certain amount of games, he got a new deal that kicked in.
But you've got to say that
market, though, we're in a market, like Alex said, of but Portuguese players.
Well, we are playing our top earners on six figures. You know what I mean? And
no,
Patricia,
I mean, we're not in the market to buy English British players at overinflated transfer.
Well, we should be from the Championship. We absolutely should be,
but we're not.
But they're saying that. I know Alex said it's hard for us to get those players, but if Palace can do it, and if West Ham can do it, I mean, West Ham have kicked on again, fair play. If those players are there in the Championship and they're taking risks on these players who are becoming Premier League regulars and goal scorers, then Wolves aren't scouting properly. So therefore, we're not doing our jobs properly there.
But again, at the same time, look at someone like Ollie Watkins, though. Everybody knew Ollie Watkins was a good player, but nobody wanted to splurge for 30-odd million like Villa did. Now, that's a lot of money for a striker, and Ollie Watkins has a really good debut season. I think he got 14 goals last year. He's only got 9 this year. So over 2 seasons, he scores 23 Premier League goals. That's okay. But do you want to pay 30 million for that?
Well, what we paid 35 million for tongue in cheek. And I'm obviously being a knob saying it, but I know
in the same window, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just guys, we're flying through here. I've had so many comments and questions. Thank you so much. I know it's a live show. Thanks for the contributions, the questions. Thanks for some of the abuse as well. We'll take it all. Some about you, Tyler. I didn't put it up because it was true. No, it would hurt your feelings. But it was, thank you so much. Got a couple of minutes left of the show. I want to briefly preview the Chelsea game now. I don't think there's going to be a lot of positivity coming from the gentleman with me, but got about 2 minutes left to talk about that. I don't mind if we lose at Chelsea. I just want them to have a go. And what I did see from Chelsea away at Everton is they didn't look like they had as much heart as Everton. Everton were technically so second best in that game, but Everton wanted it so much more. They wanted that game so much more. They were hungry. What I would do for that kind of performance, I don't mind if we lose. I can take that. But there'll be 3,000 Wolves fans there going on Saturday, going down to that game to watch their team. Lads, try, put a tackle in, fight for that badge, make us proud again, because last weekend you embarrassed us. What we're going to do for Chelsea?
No idea. What can we do? The options aren't there, like we talked about. I think we'll lose the game. I'm with you, Ryan. I don't think Chelsea have gone off the boil since the Madrid game, aren't they? They were poor at United. I watched that game. They got outfought the other day, like you say. So they're on the beach. We're on the beach. Could be an open, good game. Who knows? I might be wrong. And it'd be typical of Wolves to go down and get a result, wouldn't it? That's what Wolves do. They lose to the lesser teams and beat the good ones.
You watch West Ham lose and we go and win at Chelsea and everyone will be like, "Whoa!" It'd be nice to have a shot though. Alex, we've got about a minute left. What are your thoughts on the approach to Chelsea? Maybe if someone tried it would be nice.
Give it a go. Go and give it a go, because they, as Tyler says, they've fallen off a cliff a bit. They're playing like a team who their season's ended and they've only
FA Cup final, haven't they?
They've got an FA Cup final to look forward to, but they don't look like a team who are really focused on it at the moment. Fallen away so badly in the league. You've seen teams go to Chelsea recently and score 4 goals. Brentford did it, and all right, Brentford are really good with Christian Eriksen in there. We're not quite as potent as them, surprisingly, as the season has worn on. But go and give it a go, because what is there to lose at the moment? You're pretty much ensconced in 8th place. You're not really going to get caught, it looks like, and you're not going in above, it would seem. So just go and have a go.
Absolutely.
And let's see some attacking. I don't care if I don't put tackling.
Yeah.
I want to see him put
some, you want. I mean, I'm unfortunately I'm still not well enough to make that game. So I just hope for the people going they can put a shift in, play some football, and have a go. Before we go, then, Alex, we do this every week. Give me your first scorer and score prediction for Chelsea.
Ooh. Oh, I will have Neves,
Get in.
but they'll lose 2-1.
Okay, well, that's something positive. Tyler.
2-0 Mount.
Oh, goodness me. Well, you've put me in a corner, so I'm gonna go begging for a 1-1 draw. Willy Bolly. I don't know. I'll take anything. I'll take absolutely anything. This has been episode 29 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much for Mirror Sports assistant sports editor Alex Richards, one of our regular pundits Chris Tyler, and thank you for Nocky for appearing 14 times for 1 second and then being unable to get his phone on. I'm sure you're watching now, Nocky. Thanks everyone for the comments. This has been the Wolves Report. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Up the Wolves.